Yeah, speaking of Tony, who played Paulie Walnuts in Sopranos, you actually snuck up in an episode of Sopranos. I think it was in season 2. It was during the party. I think it was the garbage union party, and it was in the middle of
Yes.
when Tony just got done chewing out Richie, and he was eating like a piece of meat, and then you were having some dialogue, and then he sees you, and right before he's done looking at you, he just passes out.
Yeah, it was a sanitation like party. It was like a golf outing for
Yeah.
the sanitation guys, and I was in that whole when they went in that some of the episodes were about the sanitation for a while there. It was about the sanitation business and Barone sanitation and all that. And Joe Lisi was in with that. My friend Joe Lisi played the role as far as being in being Barone. And I'm sort of just rambling about how many pounds my truck was, and I got right through the transfer station. Should have got stopped because my truck was too heavy, and blah blah blah. And I'm just kind of like, and a couple other people are rambling, and Tony's looking at me rambling, and then that was when he was going through his phase of having panic attacks, and he was actually chewing peanuts, not meat. And then he like started spitting the peanuts out of his mouth, and then he just like fell on the floor with his panic attack, passed out, and then his sister comes, running over to him. And it's funny because as an actor, as a director, I'll read something differently than maybe an actor would. So when I read the scene, I was like, oh shit, can I curse on this show?
Oh yeah.
Is cursing's okay? So I was like, oh shit, he's seeing blurry here, it says, and he's having a panic, he's gonna pass out. My lines are either going to be like Charlie Brown teacher going wait wah wait wah 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 wah. You're not even going to hear what I'm saying, or I bet you, or they'll blur me and make me a little bit double vision. So sure enough, like about halfway through my dialogue, I start going double vision. I'm like, oh, you have a cameo on the show, and you got to go out of focus for God's sake, But I took that role because who knew that The Sopranos was going to go that many seasons and be that successful? In hindsight, if I knew that, I would have passed on that role because, it was like a day player role. And if I had held out, there was so many more roles that came about that probably I would have hedged my bet that I would have wound up with a bigger and better role. But a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. So, as an actor, I took the role, and it was one day, but I'm still getting residual checks for it. So I'll take it.
Yeah, because again, that was season 2. And season 1 had probably just finished airing when they were looking to cast season 2. So the show hadn't really been established at that point. And I think it was after the finale of season 2 of What Happened to Big Pussy is when it really catapulted.
Yes.
Right.
Right. So, nobody knew. I mean, even when we were shooting, like I worked up, but believe it or not, because I had gotten away from the business and came back to it. When I came back to it, I was back on set doing some things just to get back on set before I was like, trying to get back into the acting roles. So believe it or not, for the first season, I was Stevie Van Zant's stand-in. So I did, I did the film tests that they did before they ever shot the first episode of The Sopranos in the Sopranos kitchen. I was there, and they filmed me as him, supposedly him, to do testing. And then after that, I did his, thinking that they probably would throw me a bone and say, hey, let's give something to Paulie, this and that. But it didn't work quite out like that. If you were a good stand-in, they want to keep you as a stand-in. So the second season, they offered it to me again. And I turned it down. I says, no, I did it for the first season, and I wanted to stop. But you guys kept pulling me back in and asking me, please, come on, So that was what I did the first season. But we didn't know. I mean, people thought when we're on The Sopranos, people thought it was about like The Sopranos, the singers, like sopranos and tenors. Nobody really knew everything about what it was going to be until everybody started reading the scripts. And the next thing you know, it's on the side of buses, and it's like Tony and the other guys with their arms folded and all that. So so I was in the second to last episode of the second season, but the second season hadn't aired yet because they were shooting it. So it had just been like the first season. So nobody knew that it was going to blow up like that. You're right. When Vinny Pastore got whacked, on the boat out in the ocean. Yeah. Like that was like it really was. And all the characters, such great characters on the show. It deserves the accolades that it got. I thought it was a masterpiece of a TV series, and I think it'll capture the mob, at least that generation of the mob and that locality of the mob, probably better, better than anybody ever has done or that will do again. You're never gonna match or top that.
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite TV show of all time, and I've probably seen Sopranos maybe 100 times, the actual series, over and over again. I mean, I'm probably going to restart it next week. But no, definitely. I mean, it still even holds up today. I mean, you watch it, a lot of the issues and stuff they talk about, it still is stuff that we're facing today. And then now with the prequel film coming out, we get to see, some of these characters, during their youths, and some of the characters that we saw in flashback scenes actually with, full featured roles. So I do got to ask, have you had a chance to see the trailer yet?
Yes, I've seen the trailer, and I'm I'm kind of hoping for and expecting more from the movie than I saw in the trailer. I felt like the trailer was kind of subtle and gave you a little bit of information, but I'm thinking that the movie is going to be even better than the trailer. I feel like the trailer gave you bits and pieces. If you were a Sopranos fan and an audience member of the Sopranos, you would get more of it. Like, I think if someone never watched the Sopranos and saw that, you wouldn't really, well, what is this exactly? But we get it, and we know that Jimmy's son is playing him, and they gave us a little taste and a little flavor of that, and that's going to be kind of cool to see, because I knew Jimmy from before Soprano fame. We lived in the same building in the West Village
Wow.
for a while down on Bleecker Street, and when I moved out of my ground floor apartment to move upstairs to a bigger double apartment on the fourth floor, Jimmy moved into my ground floor apartment. And when we first met, I didn't even know he was an actor. We met, he was a new tenant, he had moved in, we were talking. And then one day I'm watching TV with my ex-wife, and we're watching Terminal Velocity with Charlie Sheen. And I'm like, holy shit, that's Jimmy from downstairs. So the next day I saw him, I says, Jimmy, I was watching this movie, Terminal Velocity, last night. You're in it. I didn't know you were an actor. I says, I'm in the business too, because we had just talked a little bit. And then we kind of hit it off and became, friends, and bicycle ride in the village together, go have a drink together and hang out. And then things elevated for him in the business with Sopranos, and he eventually moved out and got bigger places, and so I knew him from way back. And also he was he helped me out a lot in the way of in 1998 there's something called the Italian Actors Union, and it was for Italian speaking actors. There was a time where we needed a union, back in back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s. There was a lot of Italian speaking theater in Manhattan and in the boroughs. And then by 1998, there was no Italian speaking theater. So the union itself, which was an actual union with same powers as Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, AGMA, ACVA, and it was only down to about, I think, 67 members. And they kept asking, why don't you run for president? Why don't you run for president? I was like, but of what? There's no Italian speaking theater. So I ran for president. I won. But then I reinvented it and rebuilt it. So instead of it being called the Italian Actors Union, we call it GIA, the Guild of Italian American Actors. And then we made it more about not so much Italian speaking theater, but about the networking for Italian American actors. And one of the first members that I recruited, because I was on the set of The Sopranos, was Jimmy. I said, Jimmy, would you join? I says, because I'm trying to recruit and build this up again. And he brought me his check to the set. I forget how much it was, but he filled out his application. So that helped me, because other people wanted to join when they saw that different people are doing well with members. And I built it up to over 500 members from 1998 to 2002. But then I wasn't president anymore. I stepped out of office, and now it's kind of, unfortunately, sadly, dwindled back down again. But we were like an entity to be reckoned with at the time.